What is going on, guys? This is Fabio, and on this channel I help you become a better programmer, so subscribe if you're interested. In this video you'll learn how to create, structure and style the menu bar and all the menus in your Python Tkinter GUI applications to make it similar to the one of Visual Studio Code. As you can see, this is Visual Studio Code, so you've got Go, Back, Tweet Editor, etc, etc, and this is what we are going to get. So the same thing here, Go, Switch Editor, etc, etc, of course with fewer entries because I didn't want to waste the whole video writing things. Okay, so as you can see, you've got the same things but not all of them. I'm also going to show you the differences between Linux and Windows and how to make things look good for both operating systems. Unfortunately, I don't have Mac, so you'll have to experiment yourself and see. In the source code that you can get using the link in the description box down below, I wrote the code that will check the operating system of the user and change things accordingly, which is kind of cool because it's all automatic. So if you want to get the complete source code and support the channel as well, check out the link in the description box down below. So let's close this and let's start writing our code. Okay, so we can start by importing Tkinter as TK. Then I'm going to structure things using the class. Okay, if you don't know how to use a class, I actually made a series where I try to explain everything you need to know about classes. So I'll leave the link in the description box down below if you want to check that out. So here I'm going to inherit from the frame, okay, the frame widget. Then I'm going to do something like self root, and then root is equal to the root. And now here I'm going to write a few variables containing colors that we're going to use later on when we style the menu. You might be wondering why I'm doing this here. Of course, because I don't want to hard code the values, so that if you actually want to change the colors of the menus, etc, etc, you can just do that directly here and all the various menus will have the right color, okay, without having to do that one by one. Of course, you can do the same thing for other things like borders, font, etc. But those are things that are less frequently changed, so I'm not going to add them here. So I'm going to start with the background menu bar, and this is going to be like that. Then self.foreground menu bar, and this is going to be black. Then self active background menu bar, and this is going to be all right, self.active foreground menu bar, and this is going to be black as well. These are the colors that you can see in Visual Studio Code, at least here on Linux. Okay, so they should be the same colors, 5 like that. Then self foreground menus, actually here it's menus, not just menu. Okay, and this is going to be black as well. Self active background is going to be like that, and then self active foreground menus is going to be black as well. And then background application, this is just the background that you can see in here, so this background here basically, and these are all the colors that you can see here. Okay, so this sort of light blue, etc, etc. Then down here I'm going to call super init like that, and then here root, and that background self dot background application, and then as usual I'm going to do something like mainframe self, okay, just to make things more understandable. This is not necessary. This thing here is not necessary because basically I actually do that so we actually see mainframe instead of just self, but that is not something that you need to do. You can do that if that makes sense for you. Then true, then self dot mainframe dot column configure 0 weight 1, and then same thing for the row configure like that. Perfect. So let's actually go down here and add a little bit of code to actually see the application. Okay, so root is going to be tk TK like that, and then root title, as we're going to sort of make, let's call it a sort of copy of the menu of Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to use root title Visual Studio Code. Geometry, let's start like that. Okay, and then we could do something like Visual Studio Code, up like that, and then here of course root, and then root dot main loop to actually see the application. So let's try to run it and see if we get something. So Python tkinter menu bar. Okay, so this is what we actually get. Perfect. Okay, so now we can go back here, and instead of putting everything inside of here, inside of the init method, we're going to call a method that we're going to create in a second. Okay, so we can do something like create menu bar self, and we're actually going to call it here. So self.create menu bar like that, and here we can actually create the menu bar. So to create the menu bar at the top of the window, we need to create a menu widget and then add it as the value of the menu option to the root window. So let me show you. So self menu bar is going to be a menu. I'm going to pass self root as the parent, then self.root.config, and we can do something like menu self.menu bar like this. Or you could do something like this, self.root, then menu, and then self.menu bar. Okay, you could do something like that. I actually like this one, so let's actually use that and comment this out. So now that we have our menu bar, we can populate it with the various elements. We can add different things, different type of elements like normal commands, submenus, checkboxes, etc., etc. I'm just going to show you normal commands and submenus, which are the most used. But keep in mind that you've got also checkboxes, etc., etc. So a normal command is just a button that you click on the menu and does something, and you can add it using add command. So something like this: self menu bar add command label, let's call it command. If we run now the application, as you can see, you've got this command here, okay, but it does nothing because of course we didn't specify anything to do. But let's actually create a quick function. So we could do something like here, def my function like that, and then print command, something like that. And then here as the command, we use my function. As you can see, I didn't write that with the parentheses because I don't want this to be run straight away, but I want this to be run just when we click the command button. So now if we run the application and we actually do something like this, when we click command, as you can see, you get this. All right, perfect. Let's clear that. This is basically how you specify commands to the command elements in the menu. So now though, since we're trying to recreate the Visual Studio Code menu, I don't have commands. Okay, so here, if I click any of those, I actually get a submenu. So to add a button that opens another menu, you need to use add cascade. So let's actually remove all of that. Perfect. By the way, remember that you can get the source code of this and my other videos using the link in the description box down below, so go and check that out if you're interested. So add cascade expects a menu object, since we're literally adding another menu, okay, that will be opened when we click on the button. So to do that, we're going to do something like self file menu is going to be tk menu self menu bar, because these are menus that are children of the menu bar, which is a menu itself. So the menu bar is the parent basically, and then all the other menus are the children. So we're going to do something like edit, selection, view, go, run, terminal, help. And we're going just to change the titles, edit menu, and then we're going to have selection menu, and then view menu, go menu, run menu, terminal menu, and then help menu. And now that we've got the menus, we can actually add those to the menu bar because otherwise we wouldn't see them. So we're going to do that using add cascade. Self menu bar, add cascade. We need to specify the menu. So the first menu is going to be self.file menu, and then the label is going to be file. Okay. And then let's do the same thing. So I don't know if they are enough, but anyway, so edit menu, selection menu, view menu, go menu, run menu, terminal menu, help menu. All right. And of course here it's important, edit, selection, view, go, run, terminal, help. All right, so let's actually run it. All right, so now we've got this menu here, and if you click on them, as you can see, you get this thing here, this weird thing here. And this thing here is basically used to detach the menu, the submenu from the window. So if you click here, as you can see, you get this, which is the edit menu. This is not that used anymore. So we could actually remove that by doing something like this. So here in the menu, you could do something like tear off false, or you could just specify like false like that. Okay. But since we need to do that for all the menus of the application, we can do that directly inside the init method. And we could do something like this. So up here, maybe here, we could do something like self root, then option, add, tear off, and then tk false like this. And now, as you can see, you don't get that anymore. So basically this turns off the tear off option for all the elements that of course have that option, which is kind of cool. So now that we've got these menus, we can actually add a few elements to them. I'm actually just going to add elements to the go menu. Okay, so this one, because that contains interesting things like, as you can see here, you've got something that is not active, etc., etc. You've got a submenu, another submenu, etc., etc. So, and then you've got all the shortcuts. And then after we've done that, we'll see how to style everything and the differences between Linux, which is the operating system that I'm using, and Windows. So now, as I said, we need to add elements to this menu, and we could do this here, okay, inside the create menu bar. But I actually like to structure things a little bit different. So I'd rather divide the whole thing into different methods. So one method for the go menu, one method for the file menu, edit menu, etc., etc. So basically I'm going to do something like this. So down here, I'm going to call self add go menu items, which is something that I'm going to create now. So here I'm going to do something like def add go menu items self, and here we need to add the elements in the go menu. So we can do something like self go menu add command, because in this case you don't have a submenu for the back like that. And here of course you need to add the command as we did earlier. So for example, here you could have like command and then my function, okay, something like that. Of course I don't have that, so I'm not going to actually write them, but of course for each button you should have a command. Perfect. And also, did you notice that here you've got these shortcuts? You can actually do that using the accelerator option. So here we can add something like accelerator and then alt left arrow, and as you can see, if we run that, now you've got this back and then the accelerator. It's really important to know that the accelerator is just simple text, okay? It doesn't mean that if you press that combination, the command is executed. You still need to bind an event to that combination of keys. So in this case, the accelerator is just to show the user that this is the combination to use, but then you still need to bind this combination to a specific command. So this is just a visual thing, if that makes sense. Then we've got the forward, okay, the forward button. And did you notice that here the forward is not active? So as you can see, this is not active, and you can change that by doing something like that. So first of all, this is the right arrow. You can do something like state disabled. And actually, as this is quite long, we could do something like this. So we could do something like this and then this, and maybe we could do the same thing for this one. Okay, something like that to make things a little bit shorter. By the way, don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it, and also subscribe to the channel as well for more videos like this one. So let's actually run it and see. Okay, so as you can see, you've got the back button that is active and this is not active. Of course, everything looks a little bit old style, etc., because we need to style it properly, but I'm going to do that later on. Okay, first I want to finish the structure and then we'll worry about the style. Let's go back here. So in this case, the forward button is disabled and you should be able to actually activate it when the conditions allow it. And luckily, there are a lot of methods that you can use to add, remove elements from the menu, change options, etc. I'm not going through all of them, but I want just to show you a few. So let's go back here. So for example, there is the self, go menu, delete, and then here you can use the index. Okay, you can have more than one, but in this case, let's say that we want to remove the forward button. So if you do something like that, as you can see, now you don't have the forward button anymore. And you can use this whenever you want. Let's say that you do something, your program does something, and then you need to delete, for example, the forward button. Then you can do something like this. Then you can also insert a command or a new menu using insert command. Or you can use insert cascade, checkbox, etc. This is 0 index, as you could see earlier, because if I do something like 0, that means the first element. And then I'm going to do something like label and then new, and then, I don't know, you can have whatever you want. So in this case, I'm going to insert the new command as the first element. And as you can see, now you've got new, back, forward. Okay, very cool. And then there is also one to change the options of an item. And in this case, let's say that you want to enable the forward button. You could do something like entry configure 1, because that is forward. And then you can do something like state tk active. All right, so let's see if that works. As you can see now, this is active. So whenever you want to activate the forward button or disable something else, you can use something like this. And you can do that whenever you want. So let's actually remove that. That was just to show you. So now we can add a few other elements. So we've got the self go menu like that, and then add command again. And the label in this case is going to be must edit location like that. And then the accelerator is going to be shift space like that, which is this one. As you can see, shift backspace. Okay, accelerator. And then we can add a separator. Add separator. And then we've got another menu, which is the switch editor. So as you can see here, you've got switch editor, which is another menu, which opens another menu. And how can we actually do that? First of all, we of course need to create a new menu, because the switch editor is basically another menu. So we can do something like self go switch to menu. Okay, these are names that are pretty clear because you want to be clear when you have a lot of menus and stuff. So for example, here I know that go is the menu and then switch editor, etc. Then you can have whatever you want. These are just names that I came up with and that made sense to me. So now that you've got the new menu, we can actually add it to the Go menu using add cascade, of course, because add cascade is basically to add new menu. So the new menu is going to be self.go switch the menu, and then the label is going to be switch editor. And of course, now we can add the elements to this new switch editor menu. We could create another class menu, but I think that we can keep everything in here. Of course, do what makes more sense to you. So here we need to add things to the menu. So we just have commands. So it's pretty easy. So label is going to be next. So like that. Here we've got the, and here we've got the next used editor. Here, as you can see, I didn't write the accelerators because I've already explained to you how to use them. Okay, so I didn't write them. And in the middle here, we actually have something like this, add separator, like that. We actually have more because, as you can see here, you've got all of those and all of those, but it doesn't make sense to waste a lot of time to actually write all of them. If you want to, feel free to do that. So let's actually run it and see what we've got. So Go menu, you've got this, forward, switch editor, next editor, previous editor, and the next used editor. Okay, so this structure is basically here. So before we style it, let's recap a little bit. This is the main menu bar, which is a menu, and this is part of the window. Then we created other menus, so all of those are menus, and we added them to the main menu using add cascade. Then all of those don't have any children, and we actually added some children to the Go menu. And basically this is the Go menu with all the content. This is a command, this is a command, this is a command. This is another menu, so we created another menu, the switch editor menu, and we added to the Go menu using add cascade, and then we added those things here to the switch editor. So basically you've got one menu, then the second menu, and then the third menu. Okay, and then all of those menus, they don't have anything because we actually didn't create them. Of course, in a real application, those should have things like this, like file, edit, etc. Perfect. So now let's see how to style things. Let's actually go up here. The create menu bar method. So when it comes to styling, you need to understand that when you style a specific menu object, like in this case, this is a menu object, file menu, edit menu. Okay, as you can see, those are menu objects. Then you're styling the menu as a whole. So the border around the menu, the background color will be used for all the elements, the foreground color will be used for all the elements, and then the active color, etc., etc. And then you can actually style each element differently, but let's do things one step at a time. So, for example, here, as you know, I am on Linux, but I will show you the differences between Linux and Windows, and I'll show you clips of the application on Windows. So don't worry, because I'm going to show you the differences, what you can or you cannot do, etc., etc. So for example, when it comes to the menu bar on Windows, you can't do much. So when it comes to this part here on Windows, you can't change the color, you can't change the font size, etc. You cannot do anything. And you should see now a little clip that shows you how things are on Windows. On Linux, on the other hand, we can actually have more fun. So let's try to change a few things here and there. So first of all, here we can do something like this. Okay, so self root, then the background color is going to be self.background menu bar. It's actually like that. Okay, then the foreground, which is black, so it's standard, but if you want to change that, you can do that up above. Then the active background is going to be self.active.bg menu bar, and then the active foreground is going to be self.active foreground menu bar. Of course, let's actually see what we've got. Okay, so you've got this. If we actually change that so you can see that better, because it's really subtle like that, now you can see that the color actually changes. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to this. Then you've got the border, which is similar to the border width. I didn't see any differences, to be honest, but maybe there are, but I'm not sure. I didn't see them. So I'm just going to show you with the border width. Let's try 15. So you can see, as you can see, you've got this border width around. As I said earlier, this doesn't work on Windows. I don't want that, so just 0. Then relief, you could do something like flat. Actually, I'm going to show you with the 15 border width and relief flat. As you can see, you've got this around, but when you go over the elements, you don't see the whole thing, but just in the middle, so it doesn't look good at all. So I'm just going to stick to 0, and then this is not necessary. The active border width 0. And what is this? I'm going to show you. So 15, and I'm going to show you what that does. Basically, when you click on a button, you get that. It doesn't look good at all. Just, we're going to stick to 0. All right. And then the font is going to be Arial, which is a classic one. And then 10. As you can see, now that this is a little bit bigger. Okay, the font size. On Windows, this is not something that you can change, but here you can change it. So I'm just going to use 10, which is similar to, as you can see, the font size in there in Visual Studio Code. So as I said, this style, okay, the menu bar here, TK menu and all the style here, targets basically the whole menu. So as you can see, the active background is for all of those. The active foreground is for all of those, etc. But what if we wanted to actually target a specific item? Like, for example, I want this button to be red and this one to be green and whatever. And we need to do that inside the add cascade method. So we could do something like this. So down here, add cascade, we can do something like this. Let's actually style the first one. So here, for example, you don't have all the options. So for example, you don't have the border, etc., but you have the colors. And as I said, since we are still in the menu bar, so we are basically styling how the menu bar looks at the top of the window. On Windows, these things don't work. Okay, but bear with me. So here we're targeting the first element of the menu bar. So if we do something like active background and we do something like red, and we open that, as you can see now, all of those are the same, but if you go over file, that becomes red. So you can change a few things here and there, the foreground, background, active background, etc. And you can basically change them singularly, which is pretty cool. And besides the color, there is also another cool thing that you see sometimes, which is the underline to show you what letter actually activates that specific menu. Let me show you what I mean. So underline 0, which is the first here, you'll see that now, as you can see here, you've got the F with the underline. And when you add the underline, then you can press Alt plus the letter with the underline to open the right menu. Okay, so in this case, Alt plus F will open the file menu. All the other menus are not enabled because you need to add the underline, especially here on Linux. On Windows, the underline doesn't work, meaning it's not shown even if you add the underline option. But I've noticed that even if you don't add the underline option, you can still open the menus by pressing Alt plus the first letter of the menu. So basically Alt plus F opens the file menu, Alt plus E opens the edit menu, and so on and so forth. This works by default, so you don't need to do anything. Basically on Linux, you have to add the underline option to enable this feature menu by menu. On Windows, it works on all of them without doing anything. So let's actually just remove that. I just wanted to show you that. Perfect. So basically, by adding the options to the menu, so the menu here, to the menu, this menu, etc., you are basically adding all the options to the items that are inside that menu. However, by adding them here in the add cascade, add command, etc., then you can change the look of only that specific item. You can also use state to disable the elements. So as I shown you earlier, state, TK, disabled, etc. And there are also other things that you can do, but these are the most used. So let's go back actually to this, because there was something that I actually wanted just to show you, but this is not necessary anymore. Perfect. So now we can actually style the Go menu. So here we've styled this menu, and we can style this menu because it doesn't look great at all. Quite old style. So as I said, if we want to style the menu as a whole, we need to do that here inside the menu. Here, as we are not inside this menu bar here, but we are inside this secondary menu. Then on Windows, you can actually do a little bit more. You still have differences, but I'll show you those as well. So first of all, let's do something like this. So background is going to be self.bg menus. The foreground is going to be self.foreground menu, not menu bar. Then active background is going to be self.active bg menus, and then active foreground is going to be self.active fg menus, and this is what we actually get. So let's see, you get something like this, which is already looking a little bit better. And now you should also see what it looks like on Windows as well. So you should see that now on the screen. Okay, so font 10 to make that a little bit, the font a little bit larger. And this actually works on Windows as well. I've actually noticed that on Windows, in the menu bar, the font is 9, I think, and you cannot change it. Here, on the other hand, you can change it, but if you want that to be consistent, you shouldn't write the font at all. So you should just delete that. But if you want the font to be a little bit larger in the submenus, because luckily in the submenus, you can actually make that larger, then you can do that like this. On the screen now, you should see how it looks on Windows with font 10. And as you can see, that looks a little bit larger in the submenu. I'm going to leave it like that. I quite like it a little bit larger, okay, at least where I can, but feel free to leave the default font size if you want. Then, as you can see here, you've got really little padding around the menus. So I'm going to add a little border to increase that padding. So we could do something like this. So border 4. This should do the same thing, but I'm just setting both to 4, so that's fine. And let's see what we've got. So now, as you can see, you've got a little bit of border, but I don't like that way, so I'm just going to use, do you remember that we used relief and then tk.flat to make it better? Perfect, so let's see now. Okay, so much better now. You can see that you've got a little bit of padding around. I actually want to show you one thing. So as you can see, let's actually increase the border to 10 like that. So as you can see, when you've got the border and you hover over the menu items, the border is not active. As you can see, you just get this thing here in the middle. The light blue background doesn't stretch to cover the whole line, but just in the middle. It's not that cool, in my opinion. So I'm just going to leave it 4. So as you can see, it's really subtle. You just have a little bit of border, but it looks quite good. But too much is not that great. On Windows though, border and border width work really in a weird way. Basically, the more you increase the border or the border width, the less padding you have on the left. I don't know why, but it just works like that. So I'm going to show you a few clips and I'm going to tell you the border and the border width so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So now I'm using border 0, as you can see on the screen. Now border 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. I think that 25 and 30 are sort of the same, but I just wanted to show you all of them. So did you actually see the difference? At the top and the bottom, nothing changed, but on the left, the padding decreased as I increased the value of the border until we reached around 25, 30, and then no padding at all. And then from that point on, you could have border, let's say 100, and you wouldn't see anything different, which is quite weird, but that's how it works. So I've actually decided to keep the border 4 that works on Linux and it looks good on Windows as well. So this is what it looks like on Linux, and you already saw that. And also this is what it looks like on Windows. You should see now on the screen. So let's go back to Linux and let's talk about active border, another option that works completely different on Windows. So on Linux, if you add the active border width, so active border width, let's actually exaggerate and use 20. Okay. That means that, as you can see, when you go over the elements, you get something like this, which is awful in my opinion. So on Linux, that is going to be 0 for sure. So as you can see now, you don't have that line around the buttons, and it looks so much better. On Windows though, the active border width works sort of like the border here on Linux. So it creates a sort of padding around, and the cool thing is that the active background color covers the whole button. So it doesn't behave as it does here on Linux, that if you've got the border, then you have the light blue in the middle, and then you have the border that is sort of white. On Windows, you actually get the whole button covered by the active color, which is kind of cool. But there is a problem with the accelerator, because with a lot of active border width, the label and the accelerator might overlap. So now on the screen, you should see the version with the active border width 0. Then you've got 5. Then you've got 10. And as you can see, the color covers the whole button, okay, even the border, which is cool. But let's see with 15. Okay, so as you can see, there is this little overlap. So to prevent this from happening, I found a little solution. Basically, you can add a few spaces after the longest label. So down here, after the longest label, which is last edit location, you can add a few spaces here, okay, something like that. And this basically adds a little space between the label and the shortcut and keeps everything aligned. So you should now see that on the screen, and it looks a lot better. But of course, active border width 15 looks a little bit too much. So let's go back to 4. Okay, so if you're using Windows, you should have 4 here. And then the border is 4 as well. And also down here, you don't need all of those spaces because we got less border. So you could just have 3. So on Windows, 3 spaces here and the active border width 4. On Linux, the active border width needs to be 0 because it doesn't look good at all. And here you can actually just leave them there because it makes a little bit of space here on Linux as well, which is not that bad. So you could leave it there. Perfect. In the source code that you can get using the link in the description, I actually checked the operating system and changed things accordingly so that you just have one file, and depending on the operating system of the user, the program uses the right options. Unfortunately, I don't have Mac, as I said, so you need to try this yourself. So being the Go menu, a menu itself, you can target its elements one by one, as we did earlier, and in this case it works on Windows as well because this menu is a submenu and not the main window menu bar. So for example, the back here could be something like active background red, and then the last edit location could be something like active background and then blue, something like that. And as you can see now, if you go here, the back is red and then last is blue, and you can now see in the little clip the colors change on Windows as well, as you can see now. So let's actually go back here. I don't want these colors, but that was just to show you. Actually, let's make things a little bit better like that. Perfect. So now we can actually finish a little menu by styling the switch editor menu, and you could do something like this. So we could do something in the TK menu like this, go switch editor menu, and then we could do something like background is going to be self background menus like this, then foreground. This is sort of the same as the other menus because of course we are trying to keep everything sort of standard. Actually, foreground menus, and then the active background self.active bg menus, then active foreground self.active foreground menus, and then font, same thing, 10. Then you've got border, let's actually do something like this, okay, border 4, border width 4, and then relief flat, and then active border 0. Here on Linux this needs to be 0, but on Windows this should be 4, okay. Perfect. So let's actually keep 0 and see what we get. And as you can see, this is what we get on Linux. Okay. You've got the separator, the commands, and then this is another menu, and then another menu, or the style. And let's actually see what we've got on Windows. So now on the screen, you should see the final product on Windows, which looks quite cool in my opinion. Remember that you can get the complete source code and support the channel using the link down in the description. Let me know if you enjoyed the video with a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Now on the screen you should see another video about Python and TK-Inter, so go and check that out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!